Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I'm finally back after a little break thanks to being sick, so I'm back to making and posting card videos. So this week I am the host of the Color Throwdown Challenge, and I will have a link to that and a graphic on my blog, which will be linked in the description box below the video. So this week's colors are gray, black, silver, and white. Very classic, very traditional colors that can go for anything, any theme, any style. But of course, with it being Christmas, I was thinking these are just really gorgeous Christmas card colors. I love, silver and gray and white together. And I thought just a little bit of black would just pop. So I started with the poinsettia background that I showed in the video I posted earlier, the haul video. Because I just got my hands on this stamp, I have been dying to heat emboss with it because it's gorgeous. So I started with some smoke cardstock, and I used my typical, keep the stamp face up on my desk. I used my anti-static powder tool on the cardstock, and then I ink up the stamp with clear embossing ink. And then I bring the cardstock to the stamp, press it down as evenly as I can with my fingers, and then pour on the embossing powder of choice, which of course is silver. I really like how silver embossing powder looks on different shades of gray cardstock. It's just so pretty. But of course I couldn't do just one. I needed to, play around and do other things too. So I did a white background, same exact method here. And on the gray one, you can't see it on the video, I'm sure, but there's a couple spots I missed, like I didn't press down with my fingers, but I'm gonna take care of that later. So the white with the silver embossing, it's like, oh, this is such a fun stamp. I really like this stamp. I think it was really popular. As of right now, it might actually be sold out, but you can always sign up for notifications to get an email when it comes back in stock. So there's the white with the silver, and then the gray cardstock with the silver, and it's just so pretty. I love it. So I did that, and then for the sentiments, I grabbed a piece of vellum, and I am using the Comfort and Joy stamp set. And I wanted to use these two large sentiments that say, one says Merry Christmas, and the other one says Joy to the World. And I positioned them so that there's kind of a gap between the two of them. I did that on purpose because I wanted to add another sentiment that I'm going to heat emboss on cardstock. So I got everything lined up in my stamp platform here, and once I was happy with it, I'm going to do the same process, anti-static powder tool, ink the stamps up with clear embossing ink, and then stamp it onto the vellum. And then this time I'm just using a super fine detail white embossing powder. It's these stamps, the large Merry word and the large Joy word actually have a bit of a pattern to them. It's gorgeous. I love it. And the super fine detail embossing powder would have picked it up even more if I wasn't so heavy-handed. And I really fully realized, I was like, why is this not picking up the detail? Because this is super fine. This is Ranger's super fine detail white emboss powder. This picks up everything. And it's because I press too hard a lot of times when I'm using, either my Misty or the stamp platform. It's just force of habit for me to really sometimes just refund my stamps, and you don't need to sit on it. You just need to press. And I'll show that in a minute, because with this, it was fine. The focus isn't on the detail of those large stamps, so I just went with it. It's right here. I'm using one of the smaller sentiments from that same set, and it's a very narrow, small sentiment. And I press too hard. I'm very heavy-handed with everything. So when I poured the emboss powder on it, it actually obscured the word. You couldn't really see it. So learned my lesson, flipped the cardstock over, and then this time when I shut the lid of the stamp platform, I just lightly pressed. You gotta fiddle sometimes. You gotta fiddle, try with different stamps, different cardstocks, all those different things to get, things figured out and whatnot. And my biggest thing with stamping is a lot of times it's just habit to press too hard, and you will lose, because so many stamps now have such amazing, detail, fine little details, very small writing, etc. And me and my, bull in a china shop type mentality, you end up losing that. So anyway, those are all random little tidbits that were going through my head while I was making this. So I have my vellum sentiments, and I trim them down with my paper trimmer. The backgrounds that I heat embossed in the beginning, I'm going to die cut with the second largest of the Simon Basic rectangle dies. And then the sentiments that I had stamped and heat embossed on the black cardstock, I'm going to die cut with the smallest of the sentiment label dies. So run those through my die cut machine. So I've got my backgrounds trimmed, and then I have my sentiments on the vellum trimmed out, and then I have my little narrow sentiments that I heat embossed on the black cardstock. So once I've got all that going, I decided the gray background will have a white card base, and the white background will have a gray card base, just to mix it up a little bit. And then to start adhering everything, I pulled out these are scrapbook adhesives. These are thin 3D foam squares. I didn't realize that I actually had packs of different thicknesses. There's the thin ones like this, and then there's just the regular ones, which are like twice as thick. These are nice. I like these. I like them both. It just depends, again, on the look I'm going for. So these are, like they say, they're thin. They're a good, like, half the thickness of your standard. You know, if you're used to the Scotch foam tape, etc. These are half, if not less than that, as thick. So it's just very little bits of dimension, which I love. So it always depends on the look I'm going for. Sometimes I like things really popped up, and other times I just want that little bit, which is, this was perfect for. So I trimmed down little pieces. I adhered the black cardstock strip to the vellum piece. And then I'm just hiding the adhesive behind the larger letters, which is really simple. And then putting a few little tiny ones behind some of the other letters, just so I can pop this up, but you don't want to see that adhesive through the vellum. So that's one of the nice things about having, you know, either chunkier sentiments, or you add, you know, a strip of cardstock, or I've shown in videos, I'll like put embellishments on top of the vellum to hide the adhesive, like whatever works. So I popped those up with the adhesive. And then for my cardstock base, the gray one, it's that same smoke cardstock. So I cut that to 4 1/4 by 11. So I scored it at 5 1/2. Top folding A2 size card. Same with the white card base. And then both these panels, I'm going to adhere with foam tape, just to, again, give it a little bit more dimension as well. If you wanted to keep everything flat for ease of mailing, you totally could. But sometimes I love that extra something, that popping things up with a bit of, you know, foam tape or dimensionals or whatever. It's amazing how it just gives it a little something extra on an otherwise fairly simple card. So I did that, and then on the inside of the cards, I just took some of the snowflakes from that Comfort and Joy set because they're gorgeous, and I stamped them with Delicata silver shimmer ink, which I tend to only pull out at Christmas time. But it's just such a pretty ink, and I did videos I think last year and probably the year before using these inks and like adding pearls and making them shimmery and metallic and everything. But for the insides of these, I stamped the few little snowflakes. It has a little bit of shimmer to it, just really pretty and soft. And now I want to do cards. I was like, oh, I need to make some cards where I just stamp snowflakes with the silver shimmer ink. So anywho, the ideas are really starting to roll, which is a good thing. So I stamped the insides with those snowflakes, and then to complete these cards and to hide the little areas where I didn't emboss perfectly, I pulled out some of the Simon silver lining sequins, which are actually technically confetti because they don't have the holes in the middle. So I just kind of sprinkled those rather deliberately, you know, to cover those little areas where I wasn't perfect, which was only a couple, and then added a few more, of course, for some bling. And I'm just adhering those into place with little dabs of Simon's Craft Tacky glue, and then just picking up the confetti with my jewel picker, pressing it into the adhesive, and that's finishing off these cards. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a link to the color challenge. I'll have a supply list with all the links. You can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and for subscribing and commenting and thumbs upping my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all hopefully very soon in the next one. Bye.